On Sunday, July 21st, 2024, I set out to Nantucket, Massachusetts, but not for rail fanning, but for a vacation. And me, with a newfound hobby for planes, decided to make a trip report. So enjoy this interesting new series idea, and hopefully there's more to come.
Think of London, a small city, dark in the daytime. People sleep in the daytime. If they want to, I'm checking them out. I got it figured out. There's good points, some bad points, it all works out. No, I'm a little freaked out now. Find a city to live in. I will find myself a city to live in. Out of Richmond, Birmingham, out of Ghost, out of look over there, Dry Ice Factory. Good place to get some thinking done. I'm checking it out. I got it figured out. There's good points, some bad points, but it all works out. You know, I'm a little freaked out now. Find myself a city to live in.
After a bit of plane spotting, it was time to head to our gate. Sadly, the moving floor wasn't working when I went on it, which was kind of a bummer, but it was still fun to walk on it while it wasn't working. We then headed down two large escalators towards our gate, where we spotted Air Canada's Maple Leaf Lounge and the United Airlines Lounge. We then arrived at our gate number 40. Since we had about an hour till our Embraer E190 left, I decided that I would watch this Frontier A320neo taxi and depart, so enjoy that. It was time to board our flight. flight, and we were on our way to Nantucket. Then something pretty funny happened. We passed a Delta Embraer E170 that was also headed to Nantucket. The race was on to see who got there first. As we departed from LaGuardia, we headed along the northern tip of Long Island. Now, the maximum altitude on today's flight would be about 13,000 feet, giving us great views of Connecticut and Long Island, which would be awesome. We passed over a big state park called Comset, which I've actually been to before. Now, this was my first time ever flying an Embraer 190, so what do I think of it? I actually like the 2-2 seating configuration. I feel like it's a very great way for shorter regional flights. However, if I was flying from, let's say, New York to Los Angeles, I would not want to be on one of these planes. We passed over Bridgeport Memorial Airport, which is pretty cool to see. From 13,000 feet, all the boats in the water looked like tiny ants. As we reached our maximum altitude and our maximum speed, we were just passing over the North Fork of Long Island. We then waved goodbye to any sight of Long Island as we were now over Rhode Island and on our way to Massachusetts. We then spotted Montauk, Long Island's furthest east point. From up here, it looked like a little tiny plot of land than what it actually is. There was no internet, so I couldn't really track the E170 that we were racing, so it was kind of a race by hope. Now, since our flight was, believe it or not, only 42 minutes long, we began our descent. We then passed over some wind turbines, which, believe it or not, one of them actually fell into the ocean and washed up at Nantucket just a few days before our vacation. Then we started to bank on our approach into Nantucket Memorial Airport. There's two flight patterns when it comes to Nantucket: the over-the-ocean flight pattern and the over-the-harbor flight pattern. Today, we would be taking the over-the-harbor flight pattern, which was also going south. From our plane, we were able to spot the southern tip of Cape Cod, along with a popular tourist stop called Chatham. As we approached into Nantucket Memorial Airport, the island started to come into view, and my goodness, was it beautiful.
JetBlue, welcome to Nantucket, where the local time is 12:26 p.m. If you receive an email survey about your trip, we'd love to hear your honest feedback. On behalf of all of us here at JetBlue, especially this New York City-based crew, thanks again for choosing us.
Not even a minute after we arrived, the Delta E170 that was also coming from LaGuardia arrived, meaning that we beat it by a near 1 minute, which was pretty cool. Now, probably the most exciting part of the whole flight, the jet stairs, which I had never used before in my whole life. We then exited the plane. Now we had to wait for our bags. It was pretty cool being up close to Embraer E190, even if they're not the biggest plane. After we received our baggage, we were off to the parking lot to head into Nantucket. As we left, another E190 from Boston was also arriving, which was pretty cool to see. The next few days, I had a lot of fun. We explored most of the island, and the place that we were staying was right on the water and right by the airport, giving us tons of plane spotting. Those were only some of the best plane spotting videos. I have a whole butt ton of more videos, but I'm not going to keep you guys waiting. Anyway, we explored more of the island, which was pretty cool to see so much on such a tiny little island. Nantucket is also known for their lighthouses, which in fact, they have 3 lighthouses on the tiny little island, which is pretty cool. Nantucket is also known for their boats, including this one, which looked oddly familiar. Also, since Nantucket had a brief history with trains, I decided that I would tell you about it. The railroad opened in 1881 as a way to get passengers from Nantucket Village to its small coastal town on the island called Siasconset. The railroad was actually doing pretty good until 1917, when it closed due to automobiles being allowed on the island. Once the railroad shuttered, all of its track and rolling stock was sent to France for World War I, which is pretty interesting. There are a few remnants of the railroad, so I decided that I would find all. First and most well known is the Club Car, which is a restaurant in Nantucket made out of the last remaining passenger coach on the island. The last remnant is in a public park where the tracks once used to stand. There is an old pathway that uses the right-of-way of the old tracks to map out where the tracks used to be. It goes behind some bushes, but then after the bushes, it reappears again, which is pretty cool, showing where the old tracks used to be. Eventually, and sadly, it was time to leave, which kind of stunk. But anyway, it was time for the last leg of our flight, from Nantucket back to LaGuardia, and I had no idea what was coming in store. We soon arrived at the very tiny Nantucket Memorial Airport. Now from the outside, the building doesn't really look that big, but when you're in there, it's actually humongous, which is pretty interesting. We said goodbye to our bags, as the next time that we would see them was in New York City. We then went through security, and then went to the seating area. Now, from first glance, it doesn't really look that big, but that's when I realized that there's a whole nother area of it outside. Soon our plane arrived, a JetBlue E190 that had just come from LaGuardia. Then it was time to board our plane back to New York. That was one beautiful approach. Now it was time for our descent into LaGuardia Airport, where we got yet again another great view of New York City. We passed over the New York and Atlantic Railway's Bay Ridge branch. We also passed the 9th Street maintenance yard on the D train. Now it was time for our next view of New York City, but there was a problem. There was a little bit of turbulence. Now, it was okay, but it doesn't really make the video look the best. Anyway, enjoy. We also ended up racing a Long Island Railroad M7, which was pretty interesting.
This Boston-based crew, thanks for flying with us today. If you did lose a pair of glasses, they will be up front when we deplane. You can grab them when you leave. Thank you.
Now that we had arrived in New York, it was time to get off the plane and grab our stuff, but not before a little plane spotting while we were pulling into our gate. Here's something interesting, a Delta SkyTeam 737. We also passed a Republic Airways E-175, which you don't see that much of often, as well as a few more American Eagle E-170s. Now it was time to get off the plane and grab our luggage and then head home. It was now time to head to baggage claim. From the big bridge, we got a nice view of the taxiways at LaGuardia and a lot of planes. Also, the conveyor belt thingy was working now, which was cool. Anyway, after this, my phone died, which means that I couldn't take any more footage. I really enjoyed the whole trip report concept, and I really liked it, so expect to see more of them soon. And not just planes, maybe trains also.